Today for Devotions with Daniella, we are reading Generation Hope, How Inclusive Economics Can Help Us All Thrive by Arunjay Katakam. This is Crisis and Crossroads, section where he's talking about the scale of the problem. If you're interested in reading this book along with me over the next couple months, you can get copies attached here. It's not by accident that many of the most successful entrepreneurs on our planet, from Steve Jobs and Bill Gates to Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey, as well as media moguls Oprah Winfrey and Ellen DeGeneres, all dropped out of the education system to kickstart or accelerate the information age. With every passing decade of the last century, more and more emphasis has been placed on how broken global education is, a system that is, bizarrely, still rooted in the industrial age. While it has been a key factor in improving people's standard of living, education is more closely controlled by parents who are desperate for their children to do well and move up in society than by anyone working to increase general well-being. Every effort is made to educate kids in the best schools. Never mind that their rankings are based on outdated scoring systems. How much do you remember from what you were taught at school? As someone with dyslexia, I struggled to learn and suffered in exams. I'm not alone, and it's not just dyslexia that's to blame. The dominant approach to teaching, rote memorization, was designed for a time when information was not available at our fingertips. Relevant skills and knowledge can no longer be gained by learning in this way, which makes the ability to spit them out in exams to score high marks irrelevant. Yet this mode of teaching is still prevalent across the world. The educational progress of 7 and 11-year-olds in England is assessed by standardized assessment tests, SATs, administered in primary school. This is common practice all over the world. While there have been efforts to move away from the standardized testing in the US, where SATs were invented, with the introduction of the Common Core curriculum standards, progress has been slow and painful. So why is education still failing so many people, myself included? Sal Khan of the online learning platform Khan Academy offers a helpful analogy. Imagine if the way we are taught at school was the model for how we do other things, such as building a home. So we bring in the contractor and say, we were told we have 2 weeks to build a foundation. Do what you can. So they do what they can. Maybe it rains. Maybe some of the supplies don't show up. And 2 weeks later, the inspector comes, looks around and says, okay, the concrete is still wet right over there. That part isn't quite up to code. I'll give it an 80%. You say, great, that's a C. Let's build the first floor. Isn't that a B? Same thing. We have 2 weeks. Do what you can. Inspector shows up. It's 75%. Great, that's a D+. Second floor, third floor. And all of a sudden, when you're building the third floor, the whole structure collapses. That's the current education model. In school, we go to lessons where we are taught concepts. We go home and do homework. That model is repeated, lessons followed by homework, until there is a test. The best students might get 80% of the test right. Others will score much lower, and we all move on from that foundation to a more complicated subject. That is repeated for months and years, building new knowledge on incomplete knowledge. If we go back to the house Khan is describing, it's no wonder the whole structure collapses. It's obvious that the process is flawed. We can even see it when it's the contractor's or inspector's fault. In cases where the school system, the teachers, or the curriculum are obviously lacking. But by artificially constraining how long we have to do something, standard measurements by grade and class period, we have prioritized time over quality, ensuring a variable outcome. Worse still, even though we've made an effort to inspect and identify the gaps, we continue to build right on top of the collapsed structure year after year, while countless kids fall through the cracks. That is exactly what happened to me at school. Disengaged, I sat at the back of the class and played chess. Or, when I could get away with it, stayed out of class entirely and played cricket. Each year, I scored 40 to 50% and moved to the next grade. My foundations were non-existent. By the time I had to sit for my Class 10 board exams, CGSE/grade 10 equivalent, I was going to several private tutors in a desperate attempt to catch up. It was a miracle that I managed to scrape through. After taking a gap year and doing some soul searching, I was lucky to have the opportunity to start again at university. Looking back, I recognize and appreciate how lucky I was. Not only could my family afford the extra teaching, but I also realized that I wanted to do well in school. That was largely due to two factors, my grandmother and my grand aunt, who frequently drilled the importance into my head. As it happened, my friend circle at school included the kids who did really well. But I was also friends with the students at the back of the class and could easily have been influenced differently. The rift was too big to bridge. I struggled despite the tutors and my best efforts. During my gap year, my parents arranged for me to spend time with 3 family friends in their businesses as an apprentice of sorts. I learned to assemble computers, fix telephones, and begin programming. While I was keen to study computer science, I didn't have the grades in math and physics to get in. Accounting was the default option. The subjects I chose at university, accounting and economics, were not taught at foundational school level, so everyone started together with the basic concepts. For the first time, I realized how important it was to learn the basics and build from there. I put away my chess set, sat in the first row, and absorbed as much as I could. To help bring more kids like me to the proverbial front of the class, Sal Khan founded Khan Academy, an online learning nonprofit educational organization, in 2008. 12 years later, Khan Academy has more than 71 million registered users from 190 countries. At the heart of its learning model is teaching for mastery, not test scores. We see this all the time in other disciplines. In a martial art, you practice the white belt skills as long as necessary to master them before you move on to become a yellow belt. Likewise, when learning a musical instrument, you practice basic scales and movements until you've mastered them before going on to more advanced levels. And that's before the pandemic upended our lives. Like businesses and governments, schools across the world had to instantly adjust to lockdowns. Some did better than others. Even though remote learning had been around for more than a decade, most schools failed to adapt, and the level of education provided decreased. In India, where schools were closed for 2 years, it affected the education of nearly 290 million children. While remote education was widely offered in India, 4 out of 10 students were unable to go online. Those who went online are still struggling with learning loss, mental health issues, trauma, and poverty. They are being called a lost generation. And for India, whose working age population is projected to peak at 65% in 2031, what was once seen as an advantage is likely to turn into a burden if many of them are undereducated and underemployed. This is just one example of a worldwide generation affected by disparate access to resources during one of the most formative stages of life. While cost and geographic barriers continue to limit access to specialized schooling, efforts over the last decade doubled during the pandemic as Khan Academy and others, such as Outlier.org, edX, Coursera, DataCamp, Udemy, Code Academy, and Andela, attempted to fill the gaps that schools were missing and ultimately to change the status quo. Khan's mission is to help open more opportunities for people in the creative world, where almost everyone can participate as an entrepreneur, an artist, or a researcher, compared to the industrial world and its associated jobs. While the concept of remote learning is as old as correspondence courses, today it's often discussed in the context of massive open online courses, or MOOCs. Organized by companies, universities, and nonprofits, MOOCs provide education in the form of online lectures, quizzes, and projects, allowing large numbers of students to learn at a flexible pace while using different models. These platforms are gaining significant traction, but education has never been about academics alone. Kids go to school to become well-rounded citizens, and that comes with pitfalls of its own. And I say to you, homeschooling parents, your children are not going to become well-rounded citizens, and that is something you will have to deal with no matter how good of an education you give them. Check out this book, Generation Hope, if you are interested in learning about different models for doing things that maybe we can bring to life.